Hey guys, I'm coming on here today because I want to share what the Lord has actually shown me about what he's been telling me about the constellation Orion and Betelgeuse or Betelgeuse. So the way the Lord explained it to me, because I kept wondering about that verse where it says, who can loosen the belt of Orion or the chains of Orion, and who can bind the Pleiades? And to me, that sounded like some type of entity, right? And so I was wondering about that for a while, and the Lord actually gave me that confirmation or revelation, right? But I didn't last night, but I didn't I was like, well, how can that be? Like, because it's a whole constellation or a planet. And the Lord began to say, he dropped the answer in my spirit. And then he began to say this to me. He said, letting loose witchcraft in the air, interdimensional galaxies chained up. Okay, so he's reminding me what he said to me the other day while I was sleeping. He was talking to me in my sleep, and he said Osiris. He said Osiris. He said something about thrice, three times, Romans 8. And then I saw the stars and I heard him say a holding cell. Remember, the Watchers came down and mated with the females who were on the earth at the time, and they created the Nephilim and basically destroyed the whole earth, right? And God bound them. So I believe some of them are in the heavens. Now, listen, you might say, how is that possible? And he gave me the revelation. They're in another dimension. So just like on earth, there's a spiritual realm and there's a physical realm. In other constellations and planets, there is a physical realm and a spiritual realm. So just like here on earth, we can feel, we can touch, right? But if we tear the veil, we can see angels, we can see demons, we can see this whole spiritual realm, right? The platforms they build up to try and come against us, etc., etc. The same thing is with the other planets, the constellations like Orion. It's God is a multi-dimensional God. He's so huge, he's so big. And I'm gonna put Brian's video in here at this point in the video where he talks about how big God actually is, so you guys can get a better understanding.
I told you all the time that Lord took me out of my body, and I shot up in the outer space. Okay, and I could see the Lord. I do not know from here up from his midway up. I could not see anything. The whole visitation. Okay, so I don't know if it was God the Father or Jesus, but I'm going to tell you, we were in outer space, and I could see the planets all. It was like everything was shrink down. I know they're millions of miles apart, but everything in the solar system seems so small to us, and we were looking at it through like the planets were right there, and there I could see Saturn, I could see Jupiter, I could see Mars, I could see it all. But we were standing right next to the sun the whole time. And the sun was massive. And it was over here to my right. And the Lord was over here to the right. And I was looking out over at the sun. And he spoke to me and he said, Brandon, how long does it take for the sun's light to get to the earth? And I knew the answer. I said it takes like 8 minutes and like 20 some seconds, right? Now, at that time, I knew the answer, but now I don't. I probably butchered it. But I'm saying I knew the answer to, and I told the Lord like this, and he said that I said at 186,000 miles per second, okay? The light travels from the sun and it takes to get to the earth 8 minutes and 27 seconds, right? And he asked me, he said, Brandon, what is faster than the speed of light? And I said, I don't know, Lord. And he said, the speed of thought. And he said, Brandon, whenever you die and you come to be with me, you will travel at the speed of thought, not at the speed of light. The speed of thought is actually faster, way more faster than the speed of light, because you'll boop, you're there, boop, you're there. Instead of going, well, I'm traveling across the at the speed of light is 186,000 miles per second. So he's telling me all this, and so I'm looking, and he's talking to me about how far the nearest star is, which is light years away. And I'm sorry, I don't remember how far it was, but he told me how far the nearest star is, which was, it took, at traveling 186,000 miles per second, it took forever to get there, like thousands of years. You know what I'm saying? And so then he said, I want to take you and I want to show you something. And all of a sudden, we were instantaneously there. And this is where it gets good. What I could see before me whenever we went into this room was a massive white room. Massive. There was no beginning and there was no end to this room. And he said to me, and it was completely white. You could see his, like I said, the white in the room was so piercing and everything was so white, but there was no ceiling, there was no floor, there was nothing. It was like it was a dimension, okay? It was a dimension in itself. And there before me was the universe, okay? Now this is heavy, but I'm telling you all, it's fact. And the universe was in its own dimension. He created a room for the universe. All the galaxies, everything was inside of its own and another dimension that was endless. And before me, the universe was moving at the speed of light, okay? Being created. I could see inside of this massive, it looked like cauliflower clouds, like thunder clouds, was moving very, very slow. Moving like this, but it was forming all in front of my face. Stars were forming in front of my face inside of this dimension, shrunk down, moving at 186,000 miles per second, was moving that fast, but it was moving slow because he controls time. He is in control of all of time. Time does not exist around him. But at 186,000 miles per second, creating right before my eyes, was moving this slow, barely moving. And I could see how big, since the beginning of when he spoke it into existence, let there be light, let there be all the things he said in Genesis, was moving. It was the size of a car, like a Volkswagen Beetle. I don't know why, but that's the way it stood out to me. It was that shape. And it was moving in all directions, not just one direction. In every single direction, downward, upward, side, left, right, north, south, east, west, all at the same time, creating like this, like a thunderstorm. From the center, there was still. From the out for where it was being created, was still moving like this, very slow, like thunderclouds, all being formed and created, all inside of this room. Stars were moving and being created from like every direction. There was no one direction that it was going all by itself. It was all moving equally, okay? Moving like this at 186,000 miles per second, but it was moving like very, very slow. And he spoke to me and he said, Brandon, he said, you know in my word where it says I can measure the span of the universe in my hand? He said, I'm going to show you how I do it. And he took that universe and he took it like this and he shrunk it down right before my eyes. And he said, I create and I am able to manipulate it, basically. Like it was like Play-Doh before him. He said, Brandon, it's in a dimension in itself. And he could stretch it out or he could shrink it. You could go inside of it because it was a dimension. Okay? It was in itself its own world. Inside of a dimension in its own world. Like its own galaxy, okay? But he could move it and shrink it down and he put it in his hand. And he had all the universe, the galaxies, which is billions and billions of galaxies, traveling 186,000 miles per second forever and ever and ever. You could travel for thousands and thousands and thousands of years and never get to the furthest galaxy. Could take you 1 trillion years. You know what I'm saying? Whatever. I don't know. 1 billion years. 1 billion years traveling at 186,000 miles per second. I'm trying to tell you how big our God is. And it was all shrunk down in this dimension. And he said, look, I can step into it. He stretched it out. And he said, I can step into it or I can shrink it down. But Brandon, I measure, it's all in my hand. And he could put it in his hand. It was stretched out. And he showed it to me. Just like this. And it was like a cube. Like a thing. And he put it in his hand. And it was still growing. It never stopped. The whole time, it was still spreading lightning. And it was all the stars were still forming in his hand as he was holding it. It was still being formed. It was still growing and still moving. No matter how he could stretch it out and how big he could make it, or how small he made it, it was still being created. He never stopped it. It was still growing. The little bitty thing that was once was really pretty good size was really small, and it was still lightning, and you could see the stars forming. And it was like lightning storm, and it was growing all in the side of the palm of his hand. I just stood there and watched it as he did all of it. I know I wasn't in my body. I know this was more than just a dream. This happened to me over 20 some years ago. And I've never forgot it.
All right, so that was a great video. So this is what he's putting in my spirit, that there is a different dimensions in the constellation of Orion. And in those dimensions, that there are Nephilim or watchers, rather demonic beings, entities that are locked up in a holding cell in the constellation Orion. Okay, so then you got the pyramids of Giza, you got Stonehenge, and you got these ancient Egyptians that try to connect with Osiris, which is a demon, a watcher, or principality, whatever. But they try to connect with Osiris from the pyramids, right? You see, Orion is associated with Osiris, the fake lowercase g god Osiris, right? So I believe what the Lord is showing me is that Osiris is bound up in the Orion constellation in another dimension. And these people doing sorcery and witchcraft try to communicate with this Osiris. But here's the thing. This is what I believe he's telling us. I believe he's telling us that they are trying to let loose Osiris from that dimension and portal, possibly using CERN, right? Because he kept telling me Stargate for months now, and I didn't know what Stargate was until yesterday. I found out they actually had made a movie called Stargate, and it talks about the period. I didn't really watch it. I just saw the pyramids, and I know it has to do with opening portals and stuff like that. So I was like, oh, that's what you meant. And a Stargate is a portal that opens up not only dimensions, but different times. So you would be able to go to a different dimension in a different time. Let's say like 1980 in the fourth, fifth, or whatever dimension, right? And I believe this is what they're trying to use CERN to do, to open up dimensions in the constellation of Orion, to let loose this demonic entity, lowercase g god, Osiris, so that dark force can come here on Earth in our dimension and realms and wreak havoc. Why? So you would say, well, why would they want to do that, right? Power. They think that these demons will give them power, right? And that they can tell them what to do, but they are only fooling themselves, right? So the way that they are trying to open up portals to CERN, I feel like they're trying to open up another dimension to bring it into the spirit realm here, right? The spirit realm here on Earth, and then possibly have a physical manifestation of this entity. I believe that is what the Lord has been showing me, telling me. Now, someone had wrote in my comment section about the meaning of thrice, because I had no idea. And that is another demonic entity called Hermes Trismegistus, and it's another entity that these Egyptians worshipped. You know what? He's just reminding me right now how the X goes over Little Egypt, and how when I was doing my research on the Lincoln Memorial, everything goes back to Egyptian roots, pagan gods and Egyptian symbols and stuff like that. I wanted to come on here and share that with you guys. Until next time, stay blessed.
There's one theory that the Iraq War was actually a war about a Stargate. Saddam Hussein, so the theory goes, got access to this Stargate, maybe threatened to use it. Was that why the Allied powers went in? It sounds far-fetched, but this theory is widely believed.
Is it possible the United States military was pursuing more than weapons of mass destruction when they invaded Iraq? Could something of great significance, perhaps a portal to another world, have been found amongst the chaos? And if there are truths about extraterrestrial involvement with our planet hidden in forbidden zones, just what would happen when the truth is finally revealed?
Toxoid.
Monsieur Solari, Monsieur Solari. Ouais, puis il y a aussi un lui, il va faire du jeu.
Whosoever, therefore, shall confess me before men, him will I confess also before my Father which is in heaven. But whomsoever shall deny me before men, him will I also deny before my Father which is in heaven. Think not that I am come to send peace on earth. I came not to send peace, but a sword.